Drew, I heard you in the hallway motivate this team. What did you say in that locker room?
I said, I don't give a flying F what happens at the end of the game. Whether we lose or win, we're not going out as no soft guys. Leave it all on the floor because it could be your last 20. And, hey, man, if you go all out and we still lose, play with no regrets. And we took that to heart, and, we came out with the win, fortunately. But give credit to Memphis, man. They really brought it, and the way they turned their season around is pretty remarkable.
Andrew?
All right, welcome to Beers and Buckets, the podcast for degenerates like us who love basketball and drinking beer, part of the Basketball Podcast Network, where you can get the latest on your favorite teams and what is happening around the NBA and NCAA. I'm your host, Connor Caldwell, and I'm joined by Dowell Harmon. Dowell, do you remember that 21st night in September when we recorded an episode of Beers and Buckets?
I do. It's because it's tonight. That's a good one, though. I didn't even think about it.
I was waiting for it. I've been waiting all day.
I've been waiting literally all day.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Got back from a cookout with some friends to do this. I'm interested also. I know we've talked a little bit about it, but this is our last preview episode in terms of teams. So I'm excited to see kind of what's next.
Yeah, I'm thinking we'll probably do just conference at this point and overview, like as we did top 25 teams, but we didn't talk about some of the teams that probably will be in the top 25 that weren't last year. Yep. So I'm excited to talk about those teams and just as conferences as a whole and give our expectations for that for sure. So can't wait to get into it. We'll have to plan it out a little bit more this week, but tonight we have a great episode lined up. Already recorded our interview, so I'm excited for you guys to hear that when we get to it.
Yes, sir.
But before we do that, let's talk about the beer, man. What are you drinking tonight?
So I went to a liquor store in Lexington and was going through looking at their options and saw here. I'll hold the box up. Saw this nice little looking T-Rex boy, and I was like, hey, I recognize that beer because a couple weeks ago, actually at this point probably a couple months ago, I was in Des Moines for a work trip because that's where my company is headquartered, and we got a bunch of beer that had T-Rexes on it. And I was like, oh, that's that same brewery. So got it. It's from Toppling Goliath Brewing Company, which is in Decorah, Iowa, and a bunch of their stuff has T-Rexes and other dinosaurs on it. I had this is called the King Sue. It's a double IPA. We had one that is like this, but was green and purple, and I think it's the step below, and it's just the normal IPA. So I got this one since I hadn't tried it yet. It says it's a hazy double IPA with mango, orange, and pineapple, as well as the citra hop, which I feel like is one that every IPA uses. But while Connor's doing his, I'll look up everything on Untappd for this because I forgot to do that. But here, let's give it a try. Ooh, that's pretty good. It's definitely smoother than I thought for a double IPA. For being a double IPA? Yeah, it's, crushable. Probably not. It's probably pretty low in the crushable scale.
Crushable for an IPA or just not crushable at all?
Oh, if we're doing the IPA crushable scale, it's honestly pretty crushable. This is way less strong than I was expecting.
Pleasant surprise for you then. There you go.
Yes, definitely.
There's that, I love that meme that's kids will turn 3 or 4 years old and base their entire personality on one of these three things, and it's dinosaurs, trucks, or some. I can't remember what the third one is, but it's dinosaurs and trucks, and so were you a dinosaur kid when you were 3 or 4 years old? Down?
Oh, of course. I wanted to be a paleontologist more than anything in my entire existence.
Love Jurassic Park, except for the scary scenes. Got to skip those. Yeah.
Yeah. But Velociraptors were easily my favorite. Triceratops. I could go on and on.
it just sucks when you find out they were probably like more like a bird than they were like a lizard, and there was that realization. Cool. Yeah. It's just a little different than what you expect. But
4.3 on Untappd.
Wow. Usually it's in like the 3.4 to 3.7. Yeah.
That's super high. It is a 100 on the IBU scale, which is extremely surprising as well.
Extremely happy.
7.8 ABV. So it's pretty strong, and it's a 16 ounce, not a 12 ounce.
Yeah.
So not quite a tall boy, but
not a shorty either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a wing. It's a wing. If we're comparing it to basketball positions, it's a wing beer.
Yeah, yeah. Not a post player, not a backcourt player.
Exactly. It's not a big
transition,
it's
baby.
Guard,
all for transition.
That's right.
So I am drinking tonight the Pastryarchy. So it's Dew Claw out of Baltimore, Maryland. It's a chocolate cherry dessert stout. It's 9.4 ABV, 45 IBUs, and it's a 3.87 on Untappd. So not entirely sure how I'm going to like it, but you know what? I wanted to do something instead of because there was like 50 things I could have gotten that I liked. I wanted to give you guys a real authentic reaction to what I'm going to be drinking tonight. I've done a stout before. It was the peanut butter chocolate stout. I enjoyed that. So let's see if I go 2 for 2 on stouts on this podcast. So let's try this. Well, I spilled it on my shirt. I'll be changing that.
So you get for wearing a football shirt on a basketball podcast.
It's true. It's very much a dessert beer, and I don't hate it. It kind of reminds me of the chocolate peanut butter stout that I had way back when we did that episode. I don't hate it. I'm not entirely sure that I love it, but I do see how people would like it, and it's pretty good. It's a tall boy, not a tall boy. It's a 16 ounce as well. So we said it's a wing player here. But I don't know. Like I'll probably drink a half of it this tonight, and I have 3 more or whatever in the fridge. So at some point they'll get consumed. But it says to serve it with a generous slice of crumbly cake, and that would be pretty good with this. I'm not gonna lie. That would be very good with it. So it's very decadent, very dark, but it's not like super tart either, though. It says crafted with tart cherry, but it's not super tart. It's not super like puckery. More smooth than a Guinness. So yeah, I'm about it. Comparing it to something in college basketball, it's kind of like pretty much any of the blue bloods besides like Kentucky this year. Because they've been more on track. Like it's kind of like Duke football, like. Kind of surprising, but at the same time, it's not built to last, So I'm going to go with like Duke football here instead of basketball because we're still in football season right now. And yeah,
we hate Duke on this podcast. Not really. We like Duke, especially Duke Update. But yeah, Duke's football coach now was a defensive coordinator, and I was at Wake, Mike Elko, and like is one of the few coaches that I have literally never heard anyone say a single bad word about him. Like, not even, he was like kind of a jerk sometimes, or like no bad words have been spoken to me about Mike Elko. So I'm kind of rooting for Duke football.
There you go.
This year.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'd rather root for Duke football than UNC football, but
true. Especially with dumb Luke May's little brother leading the helm.
Yeah, exactly. So what are you comparing your beer to, basketball or anything, honestly? Just what are you comparing it to?
So since we started making the 3-and-D jokes, I was thinking it was DeAndre Hunter from Virginia. I feel like he gives off the vibe of being from somewhere in the Midwest. He's kind of the prototypical wing that you have in college basketball. So I'm going to go DeAndre Hunter as my comp.
I don't know where he's
actually from. He's probably not from Midwest, but
probably not. But so Dowell, I've been listening to a lot.
He's from Philly. That's like the most opposite of the Midwest there is.
Definitely not Midwest. Dowell, first of all, not a plug for Spotify. It's a plug for Raycon, but Spotify has audiobooks now, dude. Like, I am so
Wait, what?
hyped. Yes, Spotify has audiobooks now.
Alrighty.
So, yeah, like, life just got so much sweeter because I love me a good audiobook, and I've been listening to a lot of them, and it's been great. One of the reasons it's been so great is because I use Raycon wireless earbuds to do it. Raycon's everyday earbuds look, feel, and sound better than ever. With optimized gel tips for the perfect in-ear fit, these earbuds are so comfortable and they will not budge, like, at all. Trust me, they don't budge. Raycons give you 8 hours of playtime and a 32-hour battery life. Raycons are priced just right. You get quality audio at half the price of other premium audio brands. It's no wonder Raycon's everyday earbuds have over 50,000 five-star reviews. There's different features that are awesome about them. The noise isolation one is pretty cool. I like the customizable sound profiles because when I'm listening to Tyler Childers, it's a lot different than when I'm listening to an audiobook versus when I'm listening to, like, some
Grove Street Party.
Yeah, exactly. Grove Street Party, because Kentucky just won by 30. So it's totally different. But you guys should definitely check them out. There's different profiles, like I said, that you could use, and there's product details in our show notes that you can check it out as well. So go to buyraycon.com today. Use code TBPN15 to get 15% off your Raycon order. That's code TBPN15 at buyraycon.com to score 15% off. Buyraycon.com, code TBPN15.
All right. Connor, how you doing in fantasy football so far?
1-1, baby, but I made an awesome trade today. Actually, two trades. Two trades here. Let me get reminded here. The first one, somebody was down bad. They're 0-2. They wanted Amon-Ra St. Brown. I already have Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson.
You traded Amon-Ra St. Brown?
I got T. Higgins and I got James Conner out of it. My only RB1 was Nick Chubb. I didn't really have a true RB1 out of it. So, yes, when you have Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill, you can move Amon-Ra. So that's what I did. Nope, I'm sticking with it. Don't make me think I regret this. And then the other one, the other trade that I did was what was the other one here? Let me pull it up. Nobody cares about our fantasy football teams, but the other trade was Dameon Pierce and DK Metcalf is what I received. I gave up Jahan Dotson, Jeff Wilson Jr., and Brandon Ayuk, and those were all players that I got off waivers. So I didn't lose anybody I drafted for them. So that was huge. Just getting Dameon Pierce because he's on all the fantasy football insights. They're like, pick him up now. They're going to go to him a lot. He's going to be Houston's workhorse. So excited to get that for sure.
Well, you're betting on Dameon Pierce. You want to bet on any of the other NFL slate? NFL is in full action swing, or NFL action is in full swing here at DraftKings Sportsbook, and the official online sports betting partner of the NFL. We're talking touchdowns, big plays, and even bigger wins. New customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team and win $200 in free bets if they do. If that's not enough, anyone and everyone can boost their winnings with the DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. Right now, for every leg you add, you can boost your winnings up to 100%. That's just doubling and doubling. With payouts bigger than ever, why bet on football anywhere else? To make things even sweeter, you can throw down on a stepped-up same-game parlay once per game all season long. So, if you want to make some good money on, say you do like Dameon Pierce, you can throw a parlay together with the Texans winning and Dameon Pierce scoring a touchdown. That's kind of one way to do a same-game parlay. So if you're looking to do that, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code TBPN to get $200 in free bets if your team wins when you place a $5 bet on any football game. That's code TBPN, only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See notes for details.
All right, during the college basketball offseason, we've been breaking down either by ourselves or with a guest that is knowledgeable about a certain team, the top 25 teams from last season, team by team, and previewing them for the upcoming season. We'll talk about roster movement, staff changes, and other impactful events for each team. This week's team is the Gonzaga Bulldogs, and we are joined by Steven Karr, the video broadcast and production coordinator for Gonzaga. Steven, how are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on such short notice. I think it was like Sunday night that I messaged. I was like, it's a long shot, but here we go. And I'm really excited about this because we typically only have like a podcast host or, YouTube channel host, but somebody that's within the program itself, that's pretty rare as a guest. So I think this episode should stand out for a lot of reasons, being Gonzaga, but two, being that you are very knowledgeable on the ground level of this program. So we're excited to talk about it, and we won't waste any more time. So let's talk about last season here. I mean, remarkable season, went 28-4, 13-1 in the conference, finished first in the conference, first in AP Top 25 and first in KenPom. So obviously the Sweet 16 aside, did it live up to your expectations, or did it exceed, or did it kind of undermine your expectations? What do you think of last year's team?
Well, I think for better or worse, at this point, Gonzaga gets judged by their NCAA tournament results, and a Sweet 16 obviously fell a little bit short of what they were anticipating. But it's really, really hard to say that a 28-4 season with a Sweet 16 is like negative. But that's kind of where Gonzaga is at this point.
Yeah.
Especially over the last 7 years, is if you don't get past the Sweet 16, then that's considered negative by the outside world. And obviously internally too, it's like, yeah, they had Final Four aspirations and they played one really poor game, or at least they shot really poorly. I didn't think they played that poorly defensively, but the people who normally made shots got the same shots that they'd shot all season long, and they just missed them. And sometimes you have those games, and unfortunately it came against an Arkansas team that was playing really well at the time. And that's the nature of the beast of the tournament. You run into somebody or you have one off night, your season's over, and it kind of sucks.
This is actually something I was curious about obviously we're Kentucky fans, so we are as used to a very critical fan base on their own team, especially coming off a first round exit. But I feel like does Gonzaga get the same amount of crap from their own fans about the lack of I don't even want to say postseason success, because you all have a ton of postseason success, but just like the inability to get to the actual championship? Is that something that is prevalent in terms of frustration within the Gonzaga fan base, as it is like kind of something that the media and other fan bases use to kind of poke fun at Gonzaga about?
I think it depends, I think, on how long you've been a Gonzaga fan. Because if you've been a Gonzaga fan for more than the last 5 to 7 years, your kind of look at the program is much different. Like if you had told people in the early 2000s or mid 2000s or even late 2000s that they would have gone to the Sweet 16 7 straight years, have 2 national championship appearances, they would have told you you're out of your mind. And so the fact that they're doing this, internally, most Gonzaga fans have perspective on that and say that what they're doing is incredible and they're one of the top programs in the nation. Externally, there's a lot of people that are just in this mentality that's like, oh, championship or bust, championship or bust. And just the nature of how Gonzaga is playing in the West Coast Conference and getting 30-win seasons, for better or worse, the external expectation from a lot of people is unrealistic. It's like championship or bust, win a championship or kind of get out of here. I don't want to keep hearing about Gonzaga, which is completely unfair to the team that is, top 5 in the country every year. So, internally, a lot of Gonzaga fans are very defensive about the program just because of how, they used to be like a scrappy underdog. I don't know how much you guys know about Gonzaga history, but Gonzaga almost left all of Division I sports before they went on their Elite Eight run in 1999. Like if that run didn't happen, there's a legitimate chance that Gonzaga as a Division I program does not exist whatsoever. So like to go from that to where they are now, 23, 24 years later, whatever it is unbelievable.
Well, we can't relate to having a program with fans that have perspective. So I'll just say that sounds nice. Because that would be nice to have.
To be fair, we obviously want to win the national championship. Like,
Yes.
all of us still want to win the national championship. But
Well,
I
and
feel what
it's
you're saying with Kentucky fans.
there's an averages thing too. I mean, like the more like the odds are going to be more in your favor the more Sweet 16s you guys go to. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not like you're just going to. It's not like you're going to the Sweet 16 and then dropping out and then not going back for another 5 years. You're consistently there, and it's and this podcast especially, but a lot of people that we know really have the mindset of like it takes a lot of luck to win it all. And so, I mean, for you guys, like you're right there. Everyone wants to hate on you, but that means you're doing something right. So it's easy to hate on teams that are successful. So that's just the nature of the beast there. So we're really just mad that we can't get to number one in KenPom anymore because Gonzaga just is there and stays there. Yeah, because they're super efficient in everything they do. Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, that's like from a fan's perspective, inside the program, what was the feeling last year for you, do you think? Like, can you give a little insight there?
I mean, it was disappointment, obviously. I think more than anything, I think that game was just kind of like shell shock. There was something off about it really from halftime on. And I guess in the arena too, there wasn't the energy of a Sweet 16 game, which is kind of strange to say. Yeah. Especially they were playing in the same region as Duke. So obviously so much attention was going on to Coach K's, final season and all that. And that game against Arkansas just was kind of flat. And so when it ended, I don't think anybody in Gonzaga's fan base was expecting to lose to Arkansas. And so it was just weird. It was a weird feeling. It was different than other tournament losses where you can kind of feel like anger or disappointment or something like that. This one just kind of felt like strange, like a shell shock, kind of strange. I don't know how to explain that. No, I think every team has had one of those losses, at least in the tournament. Or most teams have had one of those losses before. I think I could picture what you're saying there. I mean, that was how I felt after UK lost in 2015 when they were 38-0 and lost to Wisconsin. Like, I had friends over that weekend, like from college, we'd come up, and I literally just like sat on the couch for like 45 minutes and was just like, I don't know what to do. Right now. I think everyone was kind of like, coincidentally, everyone was looking on to Duke, so I think it's kind of the same vibe. Duke just does that to people. They take you out the game before instead of in their game, I guess. So, all right, so let's talk about some of the departing players here. The biggest name that left is obviously Chet Holger, went to OKC. As you can see, I'm wearing my Magic hat. I was a big fan of Chet Holger. He was on top of my board for sure. The day of the draft when there was the rumors that Jabari Smith was being picked by the Magic, I was going through a lot of emotions, and Dowell can attest to that. Talk about Chet Holger and watching him play in person, just what that does. Have you ever seen a talent like that before in person? No. I've seen Brandon Clark in person, and him and Chet Holmgren are the best two rim protectors I've ever watched at the college level. Yeah. But Brandon Clark's offensive game was very different than Chet's. For Chet to be a legit 7 feet, like if you stand next to him, you're looking up, and I'm 6'4", 6'5", and I'm still looking up at him. So for him to do what he does and stretch the floor, and also be just the most insane shot blocker, and people ragged on his size because he's skinny or whatever, but like he is physical and holds his own on the interior. So yeah, he was really just a joy to watch. We'll see what his injury rehab is like, but like his game is going to translate, I think, really well in the NBA because he's an elite transition offensive basketball player. Like he was unbelievable. Either bringing the ball up in transition or just spotting up in transition. Like his transition threes probably over 40-45% for the season. So I think his game is going to translate really well to the NBA, and it was awesome to see him at Gonzaga as well.
He and Victor Wembanyama are going to be awesome.
It would be
in 2
crazy
years
if
on
they're
the
on the
Thunder.
same team, man. It'd be crazy if they're on the
It's
same
going to
team.
happen. That's why
I'm
it was
convinced.
an injury. It was
Exactly.
Sam Presti, and now you see the news about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander today with the MCL sprain or whatever.
Oh, no.
This is Sam Presti's. Like, it's all coming together.
We're going to have to lose.
It's all coming together.
Chet and Victor played against each other.
Yeah. And
I watched that game like
19
10 times.
2 years ago. And it's just, there's so much length. It's just ridiculous.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's wonderful.
And they're both good in transition. They both have like a good handle. Like, you don't have to worry about them dribbling the ball, which like you typically do with length like that. It's unfair. It's not going to be fun to play OKC in a couple of years at all. But yeah. All right, so let's talk about some of the other departing players. Not too many. Typically, we talk a lot more. But there's only, the two biggest names were Chet and Andrew Dimhardt. And then you had Matthew Lang and Will Graves, who are graduates who average like a point a game. So Andrew Dimhardt came from Florida, transferred to Gonzaga. I think he filled the assignment that he was called to do at Gonzaga. What do you think about him there and his time at Gonzaga?
Yeah, and then some. Mark Few called him the best point guard he's ever had in ball screens. Just an absolute maestro. And I think, honestly, they can make up Chet's production for the most part, not necessarily his rim protection, but his offensive skills they will make up with the roster that they have this year. Andrew Nembhard's loss is probably a little bit more important in terms of the overall structure of the roster, because they're essentially but they're using an incoming sophomore named Nolan Hickman, who's going to have to take a huge step up at the point guard spot. And so they have had just an incredible run of really, really experienced guards. And this year they're going to rely really heavily on a sophomore who's a little bit inexperienced. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of how Nolan Hickman steps in to that role. He's a former 5-star player. You guys know all about Nolan Hickman. And so, I think that's the most interesting spot on this roster this year is the point guard spot, going from essentially 4 years of Kevin Pangos to 4 years of Josh Perkins to a fifth-year transfer in Ryan Woolridge in the 2020 COVID season, and then 2 years of Andrew Nembhard, who was already an upperclassman. Like, that's a lot of upperclassmen, experienced, mature point guards, and now it's a sophomore who's going to be ready, because if there's anything Mark Few and his staff has just excelled at over these 25 years, it's having freshmen and sophomores take just enormous jumps after learning from great players in front of them for a season. Yeah. And so that's kind of what Nolan Hickman is going to do this year, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I was looking at their KenPom page, and they have the little thing like below the player stats that has their depth chart over the last 5 games. And normally it's like, for each team you'll have like 2 or 3 guys at each position, because the way KenPom does it, it's not like overly accurate. It's kind of, a lot of it's based on height, but literally 99% of the minutes that it has logged over like the last 5 games, which would essentially be the last 2 games of the like conference tournament and then the tournament games, Andrew Dimhardt is the only person that's listed at the 1. There's no one else that it has like playing any minutes at the 1 for them. So yeah, I mean, it's a huge, I think it said he was like 3rd in minutes played this year in conference play.
He was basically playing 40 minutes a game down the stretch of the season. And I think outside of the first round game, I think he sat a couple minutes at the end, but he played all 40 against Memphis and he played all 40 against Arkansas. Yeah.
It's just tough to replace that.
Very tough. Yeah. Especially with that, just the level of talent that he already had, plus the experience. It's going to be very hard to replicate that. So let's talk about the returning players here. We know what we're going to get out of Drew Timme, Julian Strother, Rasir Bolton. Give us some of the, the guys that were averaging the single digits. Like, let us know what to expect from these guys. And we talked about Nolan Hickman a little bit. Let us know which guys you expect to see make that leap besides Nolan Hickman.
Yeah, so we talked about Hickman. The other one that everybody is really, really excited about is Hunter Salas. He was also a 5-star recruit coming in last year out of Nebraska, and his offseason has been really, really good. He's gotten much more explosive. His shot looks a lot better than it did last year. He's a really, really, really good defender, and you saw that in the minutes that he played last season. And so he is going to most likely step into a rotation role with heavy minutes this year. And so people are really, really excited about him. Anton Watson is going to be a senior this year, and he's just kind of been steady all 3 seasons or 2.5 seasons. He missed a lot of his freshman year with injury. But he's just really, really steady with what he does. Super scrappy, great defender, good rebounder, finishes well around the basket. And his offseason, he has extended his range more consistently. So it'll be interesting to see kind of the growth of his offensive game. And then the one wild card that everybody is kind of looking at is Dominic Harris, because he came in with Julian Strother and Jalen Suggs in 2020, and they called themselves the Tricky Trio. And he committed to Gonzaga back in like 2018 or something. So he's been a Zag for a long time, and he had a solid freshman year, but he missed all of last season with a foot injury. And so he's coming back from that injury now, and he is like a prototypical 3-and-D guard, really good shooter, really active hands, good length. And so we're going to see kind of where he's able to slot in, because they've got a lot of guards on this team. They've got Dominic Harris, like I mentioned. They got Salas. They got Hickman. They've got Bolton, who came back, and then we'll touch on the incoming players in a second, but they also have Malachi Smith. So there is a lot of guard talent. And so it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how the rotation shakes out with all those guys.
It's nice to hear they have another shooter coming in, because that was one of the things I had kind of noticed is outside of Strother and Bolton, who shot essentially 37% and 46% on 139 threes is crazy for Rasir Bolton. But outside of those two guys, your best returning shooter is Nolan Hickman, who shot almost 80 threes and was only a 31% 3-point shooter. So I was just curious, it's a lot of these guys have really great 2-point percentages, but was curious where they're going to kind of get that spacing and get that 3-point shot. But if
it's a good question. And obviously Chet Holger stretched the floor when he was out there too. Strother is a great shooter. Bolton's a great shooter. Bolton was one of the best shooters in the country last year. And then Hickman is actually quite a good shooter. He just didn't play a ton, especially down the stretch last year. But he's a really good shooter. Salas, we'll see. He like I said, he had a really good offseason. He worked on his jump shot. We'll kind of see where that leads. But Malachi Smith is also a really, really good shooter, and played really well at Chattanooga. And he is elite in transition as well, which is where Gonzaga gets a lot of their points. So I don't think there's a huge concern at the 3-point line, just because of how good Julian Strother and Rasir Bolton are. They were basically made up, like you said, a lot of their 3-point shooting last year, and both of them are back. And then you add in Nolan Hickman, who's probably a better 3-point shooter than Andrew Dimhardt was. And then you add in Malachi Smith as well. That's if that ends up being your starting lineup, those 4 plus Drew Timme, you're essentially got arguably the best post player in the game.
Yeah, watch your tongue there.
Arguably the best post player in the game, surrounded by 4 shooters. And so that'll be really interesting to watch.
You touched on Malachi Smith. Go ahead, Dowell.
I was just going to say, Andrew Nimhard's 3-point percentage is the exact same as his sophomore year before he transferred to Gonzaga, the exact same as Hunter Salas's was last year. So
that's interesting.
On a couple more attempts, but we're just around 31%. And he ended up being a 38% 3-point shooter. Dimhardt did last year. So,
which is respectable.
Hopefully you see a jump like that.
Yeah. No, so you touched on Malachi Smith. Kind of give us a breakdown of these incoming players. There's only 3 that I'd found. If there's any more, you have to let me know who they are. But all I could find were Braden Huff, Malachi Smith, and Afton Reed. Let us know what to expect from these guys and how they kind of fit onto this roster here.
Yeah, I mean, Malachi Smith, after watching tape of him over this offseason, I compared his game a lot to Nigel Williams-Goss, who was Gonzaga's point guard in their 2017 national championship game. That he's strong as hell. He's a tenacious driver, really, really good rebounder, can see the ball or can see the court really well. So I think he's going to do wonders, especially alongside Nolan Hickman. Mark Few has loved to play 2 point guards next to each other a lot through his 20 years. And some of his best teams are with 2 point guards at the same time. Both national championship teams that they had in 2017 and 2021 both played and started 2 point guards. 17 had Goss and Josh Perkins, and then 21 had Jalen Suggs and Andrew Dimhardt. So I think having Malachi Smith and his veteran leadership and his overall skill set is going to be huge for those younger guards that are coming up, and Hunter Salas and Nolan Hickman. And then Afton Reed is interesting. You guys saw a little bit of Afton Reed when he played for LSU last year. The dude is huge. Like, seeing him on campus, like, he is a big man, like a legit 7 foot, 250, 260. Like, he's a thick kid. And so it'll be interesting to see how he develops his game at Gonzaga. He's not going to be the rim protector that Chet Holger was, and they don't necessarily need him to be. But if he is more of a shot alterer, a la Shema Karnowski when he was at Gonzaga, like, people didn't want to go inside just because he was there. Not necessarily because he blocked shots, but just because of his physical presence. So if Afton Reed can be something like that and then develop his offensive game, I think that would be huge. The return of Drew Timme helps out Afton Reed, I think, immensely, because he doesn't have to be a 25, 30-minute a night player. Like, he's probably going to end up playing 12 to 15 minutes behind Drew Timme. He can develop his game, and then once Drew leaves next year, Afton Reed is going to step in and hopefully become one of the next great big men on Gonzaga's campus. And then Braden Huff, sorry to cut you off. Braden Huff is the third one. He's a true freshman coming in, 4-star player. In all likelihood, he's going to end up kind of just being a developmental player this year, and then kind of see where his role lies next season.
Yeah, I was watching some of his highlights and some of the game film that I could find on Google yesterday, and that's a guy that people should get excited for. Like you said, not this year, but in the years to come, especially sitting a year behind Drew Timme, getting that experience in the system. He should fit right in where Afton Reed takes over as that lead post player, but then Braden Huff is able to contribute just basically in the Afton Reed role next year. But with Afton Reed, like, the thing about it is that I know, like, his size, like, it's one of those things where referees just love to call fouls on big men because they're big, and it's not fair to them because they actually aren't fouling, like the Taco Fall effect. But like, with him, his size, that could definitely hurt him. But that's why the return of Drew Timme is even more crucial, is that you don't have to worry about giving up size when the refs are on something stupid and they call 3 fouls on him in the first half, So let's do this. Let's do the expectations here for Gonzaga this season. I don't think we really need to do the WCC. If they lose a game or two, it's not a huge deal. They'll still have like a 7-game lead on everybody else. So let's just kind of give your expectations, like, to start where they're going to be. I know not the too early top 25 is already probably out, but kind of give your expectations of where they'll start the season and kind of where they'll finish before, like, going into March.
Yeah, they'll probably start top 3 in the country again. And their non-conference schedule is probably the biggest gauntlet they've put together. They get, in like a 4-week period, they get Michigan State, they play at Texas, they play at Alabama, they play Kentucky, they play Baylor, and then they play the PK85. They start with Portland State, which obviously isn't necessarily a juggernaut, but their semifinal game would be against the power school. And then if it all work out, their championship game would be against Duke. So there's a possibility. I mean, if you're just
hope it doesn't work out then.
If you're just talking about, the powers of the sport, like in a 3.5-week stretch, they could play Michigan State, Duke, Kentucky, and Baylor, like bang, 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 bang. And then also play 2 road games at Texas and Alabama. Like, that is, obviously it doesn't happen in February when everybody is kind of clicking on the way to March, but to have those games prepares you for March regardless. So we'll kind of see how good they are, right away. I do have obviously high expectations when you've got one of the 2 or 3 best players in all of college basketball on your team. And then you've got probably in Julian Strother, a first-round pick next season. You've got a 4-year guy in Malachi Smith coming in. You've got one of the best shooters in the country in Rasir Bolton. You've got another 4-year senior in Anton Watson, who's been super, super steady. And then you've got the sophomores who are just chomping at the bit to kind of take over their spots and are hungry for bigger roles. And I think they're going to play well. So Gonzaga, like I said, kind of at the start of this, I mean, they're getting 1 and 2 seeds pretty consistently at this point, and for better or worse, they are judged by what they do in March. And obviously this team, just like the last couple, have national championship aspirations, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. I think like we know, they'll start top 3, probably number 1, if I had to guess, just because of the amount of minutes that they're returning for that roster experience. They're returning a whole lot of minutes. I think they might drop a game or 2 in the non-conference, just because, like you said, it's a gauntlet, and then it's hard for them to build it back up with the conference that they're in. But just because they lose in November or December doesn't mean that they won't string together like a really good stretch of games, probably like 18 games, to be honest, that they'll get the favorable seeding, and rightfully so, considering their success the last few years. It's not like it's some random team like St. Mary's last year or BYU at one point last year. It's the fact that they've been there year in and year out that'll help them and stay with probably like a 1 or 2 seed, like you said. So I mean,
just to give
a
quick shout out to the WCC.
Yeah.
If it weren't for Gonzaga, I think the WCC would be much more respected as like a legitimately good conference. It's just Gonzaga is just so far above a lot of the teams that it makes it hard for everybody to understand how talented the conference is. So like last year they had 6 different postseason teams.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people know that. Like the conference continues to grow. It's just when they see, Santa Clara, who almost won the NIT last year and just produced a top 15 pick in the NBA, when they see them go against Gonzaga and lose by 30, it's like, well, the WCC's trash. It's like Santa Clara beat like multiple power schools last year. Like that's a good team.
You know who else lost by 30 is UCLA. You know what I mean? But they don't give crap for UCLA about that, But,
correct. That was just my soapbox on the WCC.
No,
sorry, continue.
We agree with you on that. I had a tracker on it last year of counting how many tournament teams they could potentially have and keeping track of that. And at one point, it was tied with the ACC, which obviously was a down year in the regular season, but had the best, NCAA tournament showing when it was all said and done. But it was like they were like almost tied with tournament teams between all the, everybody that was making it. But yeah, what are we gonna say, Dowell?
I was gonna say I know that Connor definitely did as well, but I was gonna say I caved pretty hard for both St. Mary's, Santa Clara, and San Francisco all last year.
Yeah.
And made sure to bring up that they were actually good. And
yeah,
like you said, whenever you're coming in and playing on Gonzaga every year, and that's really the only game that people tune into, and they see, oh, you get beat by 20, it's like, okay, why do I care? But yeah, the West Coast Conference was, Ken Palm had it down slightly. It had it as the 9th best conference, but I mean, you could argue that it was on par with like the Pac-12 last year, which is saying something.
Outside of Arizona, the Pac-12 was not good last year. And so, I mean, like, at least with that, like WCC had better tournament teams showing that just, unfortunately, they didn't make the cut to the
same number of
tournament itself.
Same number of NCAA tournament teams as the Pac-12.
Yeah. So I think they could have had more that would have been better than the Pac-12, but neither here nor there. So yeah, let's move on to the all-time Gonzaga starting 5 and 6 man. So we don't have to go and set order like who's your point guard or whatever. We'll do our positions. But when you think Gonzaga basketball, who was the first person that you think of?
Oh, geez. Man, I think for me, it's Adam Morrison.
It's got to be.
That's probably just because that's kind of who I grew up watching.
It's got to be.
A lot of people still say John Stockton, depending on how far you go back in the program. But I think most people would still say Adam Morrison.
Yeah, I forgot about him. I feel like that you ask most people, like especially Morrison. People around our age, and it's Adam Morrison.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so we're gonna put him on there. What's the next player you think?
Well, this is difficult because there's so many, and I kind of made a starting five based on what I think would be the best team as opposed to possibly the best or the most knowledgeable or whatever players.
That's fine. No, that's fine.
So we'll do this. We got to do this quickly because I got to give my kid a bath.
Yeah.
So I went John Stockton, Nigel Williams-Goss, Adam Morrison, Chet Holmgren, Brandon Clark. That would be my Gonzaga starting five, and then Dan Dicko as my sixth man.
I like it. I mean,
I'm going to override the
sixth
sixth man and make it Kyle Wilcher since he is an honorary cat.
Kentucky connection. I love it.
Right.
That's what I was going to say. Can we throw Kyle Wilcher in there, please?
I also just always forget that Domantas Sabonis went to Gonzaga.
Yeah, he was a freaking beast, man. He should probably be on there too, but I went with Brandon Clark over him. That's both of those guys deserve absolute consideration. I love them both.
Yeah, so. All right, well, we won't keep you any longer. Go give your kid a bath. We appreciate you coming on. Let our followers know where they could follow you and keep up with Gonzaga this season so that way they get the inside scoop. Where can we find you on Twitter?
Yeah, absolutely. The Twitter handle is @SCargo. That's @SKARRG0. SCargo.
Perfect. Easy to remember. Just think the snails. So, yeah. All right. Oh, Steven, we appreciate you coming on, taking the time to come out and talk to us. And if there's anything else you want to shout out, go for it. And if not, then we will talk to you later.
All good. You guys do good work. Appreciate you having me on.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much. All right. It's time for the last call. Episode's almost over. Dowell, what do you have for us tonight?
I don't know. I don't really have a ton. I've been enjoying football. I don't know. Do you have anything? I might just piggyback up yours.
Yeah, you and I are millennials through and through, correct?
I don't know. I'm like right on the edge, and I feel like it's conflicting whether or not I'm a millennial or
I feel like you're more millennial. I feel like you're a millennial. You're older than I am, and I identify as millennial, so I'm going to go with that. But I'm tired of all the crap that millennials are taking, especially at TikTok. They're like, I saw one today that was like, you got to stop using boomerang on Instagram. First of all, no. Second of all, if there's a feature on Instagram that's widely used by like everyone on Instagram, it's okay to use it. Like, you can do things that are popular. And you know what? Stop not capitalizing your letters, Gen Z. Like, just use capitals, like, you're not that cool. You're not that guy.
I overuse capitals.
Yeah,
so I guess that does make me a millennial.
It doesn't matter. Like, you can have proper grammar through like social media and texting. Like, it's okay. Like, no one thinks less of you for using capitals. And you know what? Nobody, like, I feel like Gen Z thinks that every millennial was like a Fred. Like, you remember Fred on YouTube, like, because he's a millennial. I don't know a single millennial that liked Fred. Everybody was annoyed by him. You know who liked Fred? Zoomers. The Gen Z, like, that's what his videos were targeted for. So if you're making fun of Fred-style millennials, you're making fun of yourself because you're the ones that gave him views. That's my rant for the day. I'm done. It had nothing to do with beer basketball, but I'm just pissed off at Zoomers freaking hating on millennials. So, suck it, millennials, or not millennials, Zoomers, suck it.
I thought I was going to be able to piggyback off yours, and I definitely do not have anything else to say on that.
Also, I'm treating this podcast more like a bar now, and I have like snacks, like bar nuts.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I found these at the liquor store. It's hot honey crunch, like nuts and snacks and stuff is great. Might not be good for
my last call.
ASMR.
Please do not do that. That's so millennial of you.
Hey, I'm adulting today. That's millennial of me.
No, we need to start getting snacks on the pod. That is a good one.
Snack review. Maybe we'll do that.
Yes. Exactly.
Is that your last call? Is that we need to do more snacks on the pod?
Yep, that'll be it. We can do that as our last call. More snacks.
All right, more snacks. All right, go follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Beers and Buckets Pod. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube. Go play the episode on Spotify or Apple Music or I think Google Podcasts and iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts. Besides YouTube, go play it on there. Give us a little play so we get a little money in our pocket whenever that comes. And then, like, rate, leave a review, share this episode, and check out the Basketball Podcast Network on Twitter for more shows like this one. This has been a fun episode. I've laughed a lot. I've learned a lot about Gonzaga basketball. Had to suck up to our guest there and pander to him a little bit. But you know what? I like Steven. He seemed like a good guy, and maybe I'll hate Gonzaga a little bit less this season.
Gonzaga deserves to get sucked up to. They're really good.
Yeah, definitely really good. That's the annoying part about them is because they're good. You know, that and Brandon Huff, like they find the one, like they're the new Duke. They find the best white guy that they can, and they're gonna roll with him for like 4 years.
Yeah. As soon as Steven was like, "Oh, he's just going to be like some bench piece that we don't really have to use at all," I'm like, "Ugh, that's gross." You get to just sit a 4-star for like 2 years. And
I know, like good. Not fair. Not fair.
I wish you could do that.
Yeah.
Also, Dad, if you're listening, I introduced my dad to podcasts in general a couple of weekends ago, and I told him I was recording today, and he was like, "Oh, what time?" I was like, "Yeah, we're starting at around 9:00." He goes, "Okay, I'll listen." And I was like, I don't think that that's not how this works. I was like,
we'll start doing live recordings where he can.
I was like, it comes out like Connor has to like edit it and everything. It comes out. It'll probably come out tomorrow morning. So, Dad, if you've gotten to this point, give me a call and tell me how you like the podcast.
And also, shout out to my liquor store, Lucan's, where I got the delicious bar snacks and the beer.
Let's go.
I gave them a sticker, and I think her name's Jen. I forget the other guy's name. But they're like, well, listen tonight if you give us a shout out. So, I mean, obviously they're gonna have to listen to the very end to hear the shout out. But Lucan's,
that's good. That's good business right there.
Yeah, it is. It is. So I gave you all the sticker. This is my shout out to Lucan's Liquor in Tarpon Springs. So thank you and have a good day. You guys have a fantastic week. We'll be back next week. I think we'll talk about a conference, probably starting with the letter A. We just got to decide which one, and we'll go from there. So we'll figure it out and talk about it. But we will be talking about a conference of some sort next week. So tune back in. You'll hear more about all the teams in that conference, whatever it is. And, you'll be more knowledgeable than probably any of your friends on college basketball this season, which will mean absolutely nothing come March because we don't know anything. So,
hey, we know a lot.
We know a lot, but I still probably got bounced in my bracket challenge last year because
I had Iowa and UK in the final, so that didn't work out.
Yeah.
If there is something that you would like to hear us cover in the offseason, though, whether it's college, NBA, anything in between, let us know because we're definitely still kind of in the planning process for the rest of the offseason. So definitely have some time to fill. And if you all are looking to hear anything, we're more than happy to take suggestions.
Crazy enough, we have like 2 months left before college basketball is back in our lives. So
yes,
we're right there. We'll get through this time together. So let us know what you want to hear. We'll talk about it. We'll get some guests on that is more knowledgeable than we are about those conferences or what are those teams. And let us know. Have a great week. And that's the bottom line because Connor said so. Peace out.